invite Dnyanesh Bhave, another stalwart, into the MEP design. Mr. Amit Chaudhari, he is from KPM Design Services, and Mr. Rajesh Shirke. And another important person I'd like to invite is Ravi. Ravi Shankar is a person who has been working with access control and doors and parking management. Anything to exit the building, he is the man to control. So in case of fire, you have to bribe you. Okay, guys, welcome to the show. I'll start with the consultants as usual. There's no architects on front. Ashish is there, but I don't want to invite him here now. Too much of the boomerang for you. Okay. We start with the services that Chintan was saying. Chintan, I'd like to continue with you on proper planning and then move into the systems because that is what hits it along. Because when you plan the systems, a proper design with calculations is what affects the most. Move ahead with CFD analysis, and that is all the new things which is coming in. The basic selection of pipes, the pressure, is what I would like you and Dnyanesh to enlighten us on.
As we discussed, as Chintan rightly said, the proper planning is always required in terms of any services because that is ultimately going to hamper performance of the building, spaces of the building, and whatever you plan, let's say about safety or whatever we talk about, the first thing comes with the planning. Now, with regards to the question, what you say about selection of material for plumbing or for the fires. So basically, we have few materials which probably required at certain locations. Like plumbing, we majorly installed at outside the building lines where the shafts are provided. And they are less hampering in terms of fire. But we have a certain codes in our building code that if you are providing a shaft, plumbing shafts within the building footprint itself, let's say it is surrounded by a bedroom or toilets or rather any other rooms, dining rooms. So the providing of piping material should not be a transfer of a fire from one floor to another floor. Also the ceiling of the floor, what Rajesh has talked about, even that is going to help us. In our terms, like fire sill, which is a common word we all know about, but nobody is intent to provide that into our systems, which can probably prevent the transfer of fire in terms of any material which is used. If you use GI or a stainless steel or a cast iron material, naturally the fire is not going to get into the pipes and transfer up. But we have a PVC piping systems, we have HDPE piping systems. I'm talking about drainage and water supply both. So there are the chances when the shaft are sealed, the fire can transfer from one floor to another floor. I think that is what your question probably asks.
So any take, Chintan, on that?
So what I'd like to add here is just trying to summarize on what Dnyanesh just said, is that we have the piping systems classified in metals and plastics. So when it comes to a choice, what do I go for? Do I go for metals or do I go for plastics? It comes to even design parameters like the hydraulic calculations which we need to do is because a metallic pipe over the years, gets corroded, maybe a galvanized iron pipe or cast iron pipe or something like that. I'm not advocating or disadvocating about particular product, but in these kind of design parameters, we need to consider that the frictional losses that we would have. At the same time, what he rightly said is that plastics are more likely to be inflammable, though there are newer generation material coming in which do not drip and just get charred out when burning. But then yes, these kind of design parameters also need to be considered as in what kind of frictional losses will we have. Is it a smooth surface or is it a rough surface over the years?
But do you propagate the thought that we always, when you talk with the floor plans and architects, there's always the issue of the drain, right? And the proper shaft for the drain. So what do you suggest? You define that into 2 parts, 4 parts. So what's your take on that, sir?
So while as it started with planning, there has to be a dedicated shaft. But as the land cost or the construction cost is going high, we should look for the products which will try to reduce the shaft sizes. And individual, as I said, we should have the individual stacks for the individual toilet. They are easy to service also.
But the drain is always a major thing because in the fit outs, the false ceiling height is something which hits the
Yeah.
sprinkler design.
So I'd just like to add here situations here when it comes to drains and everything is, as I said in my presentation, as of yet, we still have to use gravity when it comes to drains. And there are situations where you can have mechanical lifting stations and everything, but it's always better to, let it go as naturally as it can. And there is a certain amount of gradient which needs to be maintained, a slope, a 2% slope or a 1% slope. So this is where most of the times we face situations where people tell us, "Arey yaar, aapka pipe bahut niche aa raha hai. Why can't you take it a little higher?" Boss, I cannot take it higher because the gravity will act up then. So these are the kind of situations we most often face.
All of us face around with it.
I agree with Chintan.
Yeah.
There are systems available which can lift and transfer, but as a society, I doubt whether we are ready to adopt that change because it requires a continuous power supply to lift it. Then it also comes with a system. It is not like only gravity is superseded with some lifting stations. It also requires some spaces and the product which are nowadays imported, but the servicing of it, how to do that. So I think we need some time to adopt it. Probably the projects like high-rise projects, new high-rise projects coming in next few years, there we can adopt it.
True. Ajit, so basically when you talk about hydrant systems, you go into part of installation or systems. What is your take? Because these are the things which affect what you actually install.
So I also have a background of being an entrepreneur before coming in job. So I've gone through a lot of scenarios like this. One of the places I remember somebody coming in and pointing at the wall, saying, "This is ugly looking wall. Just remove it last minute." So we also have those kind of, a lot of challenges coming between, specifically on coordination front, because unfortunately the first person who enters new project is fire detection and hydrant guy. And the last person who leaves most likely is also to be a fire detection guy because he's still searching for the locations. So yeah, there are a lot of coordination issues that what we see happening. And there are some portion on executives also need to be blamed because of project coordination and project management. The essential element of communication, what I'm seeing on ground level is kind of missing. Code knowledge in terms of what code compliance are talking about. For example, I handle fire detection for India region. And there are a lot of things happening on NAPS 72, which is Fire Alarm and Signaling Code, NAP 101, which people are talking about, 2018 edition, and 2019 edition of NAPS 72. There are a lot of things available, happening now. We are promoting those things in India. So because we've kind of gone away from marketing because this is not, we are selling life safety systems. We are not into sales of any important things. So for example, there's a huge change coming of carbon monoxide. Earlier presentation, we saw that CO is part of HVAC, which probably is one of the major, hazard to occupants. So there's a huge change which has happened in 2019 edition of 72, wherein 720, which was the code for carbon monoxide, has been dissolved completely, and it's entirely been taken into 72. So those kind of things one need to be aware of, that what all and where I need to install this, what all the new things are code being talked about. So that is what we are actually promoting, so that with help of all stakeholders like us, we can make systems better, simpler to maintain, and safer for the occupants. I mean, that's what probably my take would be on this. Thank you.
Rajesh ji, when you do a lot of audits, so fine, the consultants have planned everything, they have the best job, they have installed the system. So what is your off-take when you actually see which is the implemented building? What is the thing that hits you when you go for an audit?
So in this fire audit, what we have come across is we have put the sprinklers. Again, when the water drips, when the sprinkler get activates or when you use the hydrant for the firefighting, for residential building, it's a mess because let's say the builder has given the slope in the lift lobby so that the water should drain to the staircase ideally. But here, the person comes, he does his own interior, he puts his own marble, and he doesn't care of this slope. So the moment you do firefighting, the first thing is the water straightway rushes into the lift shaft. Second, we have seen in buildings majorly where we have hydro-pneumatic systems in their houses. That hydro-pneumatic geyser pipe is made from plastic, and the poor plastic, one day it just goes off. Now this guy is not in the home, the whole water gets accumulated, and then second thing what happens is after his house, the water comes into the lift lobby, and first thing is it rushes into the lift shaft. And then the whole thing goes for a 6. So here, somewhere they are taking charge of this slope part from the firefighting, but when we do the interiors, the occupants, they all mess up with that. So the bottom line here is what we have seen, they do it most of the places just because it is mentioned in the NOC, but the practical aspect is just not seen. Like we have seen in fire hydrant, they give this fire hydrant point, but it is directly 90-degree perpendicular. So if you connect a hose, the hose comes 90 degrees. So no way you can get water. But NOC it says, yes, you have provided a hydrant point. So the practical aspect of that is absolutely missing in most of the residential building. Commercial, again, we have consultants and there are professional companies who take care. But residential, whatever builder has done and rest of the things, the occupants, there is no checks and balances. So it goes for a 6. Absolutely.
Ravi, little diversifying from the residential plot. We've been talking about gates with you for years together. Now, when evacuation happens, when the sprinkler bursts, people tend to panic and run. So what is the take when you design a system for egressing?
Okay, you're speaking more in reference to barriers and
The
gates
egressing of the building.
correct. So now, all the pedestrian gates and barriers or doors that are there are basically designed with a paramount importance given to safety and security of pedestrians. So what happens in a typical fire situation? The access control immediately induces an alarm of fire or an emergency. And all these gates, be them turnstiles, the arms drop for people to rush through. Different kinds of retractable gates, the gates open, allowing free egress. And if it is revolving doors or sliding doors, they open up. And of course, in revolving doors, you also have the facility to club all these wings of the door and make it just a two-way access for people to simply run out of a facility.
Okay. Now another question. There is something which is called as puzzle parking, which has become mandatory for most of the buildings today. And I just want to know how would everybody would like to know, because it becomes also a critical mass for providing fire protection inside the puzzle parking. So what is your offtake? Basically, I'll ask Chintan and Dnyanesh and Sir to actually throw an idea, because that's very critical. When you design a building and a sprinkler system in a puzzle parking, it's actually a hell to design where the sprinkler head should be. And then we'll continue, how do you install? So first is to all the three.
First is design. So when it comes to a design, it is done on the paper. So everything is easy. You can design a lot of things on the paper. But the best part is how you implement it. The puzzle parking actually has got a rotating trays which carries the cars. And in order to activate the sprinkler systems, see, you have always a MS framework around your car system. By supporting your sprinkler piping, you can always provide the sprinklers on each slot of your car parking. But the difficult part is the activation of that particular sprinkler. See what happens when you have a tray which is moving in all the directions. You can protrude your sprinkler inside that tray. So it has to be outside the limit so that the tray doesn't hit to the sprinkler. And at the same time, it has to be charged when the temperature goes up. So that is a tricky part, and the installation makes a little bit difficult to exact the gap between the sprinkler bulb and the rotating platform. So when it comes to that, of course, it all happens upon the mock-ups, and the final sprinkler installation happened when the parking structures are complete. And normally the system what we follow is, on top layer of any parking system, there is a down pendant sprinklers, and to each car, whether it is down or it is up, we have one side throw sprinkler which is covering the entire length of the car. So this is how we able to manage the sprinkler system. along with that, there is at certain locations, we have a water curtain system which is cordoning off the entire parking areas. So in case of whether there is a fire, it can still cut off because of the water film gets generated. And the second part is the hydrant, which is normally available next to it. This is what probably you can provide for as far as the fighting is concerned.
Amit, any say on that?
So in puzzle car park, as Dnyanesh ji said, we give 2 layers of sprinkler, and it becomes difficult when it is a pit parking with puzzle. And nowadays that is a trending that only excavate where we can have the pits, and there really it is difficult to provide the sprinklers because pit is cast. The pit area is only made for the cars. So again, it is challenging, but as Dnyanesh ji said, the curtaining, zone curtaining for that particular car park is helping. And nowadays, if we go through the various CFO NOCs, they are also advising that 2 level of sprinklers, that is each one for the car. So bottom car will have one at its bonnet and another at top, and curtaining. So they are advising too. So and I think it has to be followed as they are mentioning it.
Chintan, this doesn't sit in your 6 Ps, huh?
No.
It doesn't sit into your 6 Ps because very difficult to plan it out. That's why I come to the last.
There is 7P called parking.
That's why I said I'll ask a P later.
So I'm sorry, continue, please.
What we do in all our parking systems, be it pit puzzle, your tower parking, or the auto cart or the robotic parking, we have a very advanced system in place. What happens is the health of the system every second is being communicated through an IoT to the central office. And any change in any of the parameters, be it speed, be it temperature, be it functioning of the system, is constantly being communicated to the central control room that we have. The moment we find any change in any of the parameters, with the click of a button, we can ensure that that particular equipment or the car or the pallet, from wherever it is brought down to the ground level, and we can address that situation instantly and immediately.
Because this came up with the idea that a lot of cars have caught fire. It's basically the places where you have high heat and less of ventilation.
Are cars catching fire on their own? Because these cars are all in idle.
Yeah.
They are?
There have been cases.
Really? Okay.
So I'd like to compliment Dnyanesh first. The way he has explained the whole thing is wonderful. I mean, it could be just put in the manual, and he explained it very well. Only thing is whenever we come to these kind of systems is, first thing, the biggest challenge I have faced most of the times is the structural envelope which is around that kind of a system is so tightly packed. When I tell them that I need to put a 50 pipe for my sprinkler system or whatever, itna jagah to nahi milega. I'm like, what? I'm just asking for you 50 pipe with some clamps. Maybe that's I'll just ask you for probably 4 inches or 3 inches. Why can't you put that in? So at times I thought that why can't I talk to one of these parking vendors saying that why don't you have a system which has this integrated within itself and I just plug in and it's ready to go. But unfortunately I haven't had that chance, but I've had that question all the
You have
time.
some person to catch up with.
So finally, my thing is, you have designed the system, you have installed it. For the God said, keep the wall open. So that is what we see. Pump to the, yeah, the less said the better. And finally, that sprinkler cap, people occupy, but the cap never comes out. And when we ask them, बोले नहीं तो ये तो उसके साथ में ही आता है. ये तो आता है उसके साथ में, लेकिन उसको निकालना पड़ता है बाद में. तो वह सबने काम किया, लेकिन keep the wall open. That is what
Shirke
is my
sahib,
request.
but even the smoke detectors, I have seen the cap still on, and that too in one of the fire vendors' office, I have seen that. I said, why is it on? He says, no, I know it came just like that.
But how do you do the detection for this type of parking?
So actually, so there are, we always get into that debate because NBC table 7 talks about the area is sprinklered, whether we should give smoking or not, smoke detectors or not. NAPA talks about basements, it talks about basements to be including in your fire detection. So depending on the consultant's advice, we go with it. Some consultants do talk about fire detection in basement parking. I'm slightly digressing, but just to add to what Ravi said, a very important point which is happening around right now is egress, that evacuation time, which was around 8 to 9 minutes, what our experts are telling us globally, has come down to around 2 to 3 minutes. So from the alarm going off, and whether I'm sleeping in a hotel, I'm a patient or whatever, my evacuation time has come down to 2 to 3 minutes because the material changes happening, height going up, etc. There are a lot of innovations are happening in terms of how we should sense fire reliably, and secondly, how do we notify? Now, standards are talking about distinctive signaling. The person who is occupant, they should be able to understand whether the alarm is of fire or is it carbon monoxide. Because carbon monoxide, if it is in this area, the temporal 4 has to go off. Fire, it will be temporal 3. It will be 3 beeps, beep, 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 and CO would be 4 beeps. So that distinctive signaling what code has started emphasizing on, so that the action can be taken. If this local area is flooded with CO, you have to move out quickly, and from life safety perspective, there are deaths happening worldwide. People in sleep, because we can't sense or we can't test CO, and there are other elements. People in sleep have died. So those are the big changes coming in codes and evacuation perspective. UL is doing a lot of our work there. Listings are changing for detectors. Lot of things are happening, and as we are going integration-wise, there's a huge. Actually, I would not say we have stopped calling it a firearm panel. It's a kind of an integration unit actually for the building system, which talks to BMS system reliably. And only one word here would be, since the egress time has reduced, technologies, and it's a huge onus on manufacturing like OEMs like us, that we should be coming out with the listed products which will reliably communicate with the occupants at the right time, as quickly as possible. So that's the big change which is happening now, in fact. Thank you.
So Amit, so what when he says about evacuation and ventilation, so what is your take on this? Because this is something different. This is something different. The subject itself is a little away from the normal buildings.
Yeah.
So what do you say on this sort of a parking element? Because this is something which is catching up.
So evacuation, I think there is nowadays a new consultancy stream is coming up, which is light and signages. So signages consultant, as there was highlighted in the presentation, that how to evacuate, give the number to the staircase. It starts from there. So if the people are not knowing that which staircase they should go out, it is difficult. So signages consultant has to be appointed, which most of the clients are saying, "Nahi, we will do it by our own. We have our team. We have done the projects like this." But it is a really important from all aspects, not only from the signage, fire evacuation. And as he rightly said, within 3 to 4 minutes of time, every tenant should be able to go outside of the building. Now, most of the time, commercial buildings are following it religiously, but in residential, there is a reluctance starts from the tenants itself. They are least bothered about for the mock drills, as they mentioned in their presentation, that more people are in the swimming pool rather than on the fire drills. So these things need to be addressed. Then signages can be made more attractive and followable, glowing signages. Nowadays there is a huge changes in the signages also. So that can be adopted.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Just add to what he said. The people doesn't want to go as a mock drill. So unless and until you keep the people in dark and do a drill, then only you get the 100% result. Otherwise, mock drill, we experience a lot of mock drills. I should know. You also there?
You need Rajesh to beg them
No,
up.
no. Apart from him, you, me, and Ashlesh
Yes.
has witnessed it. The mock drill, which is at the place where they suffered due to a fire,
Yes.
and still they are reluctant. Oh, easy, they are going out.
बाद में देख लेंगे.
It is a drill, so there is nothing is going to happen. You just have to slowly go out of the building. So that probably a kind of a drills we should not perform only.
True.
We should say, okay, there is a fire, now you run. So this is the drill. Basically, should be taken care by a team
Yes.
who is actually doing the engineering and the control of the properties.
True.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for sharing your views. Any questions for them?
Question to Rajesh ji. You carrying so many fire mock drills, but is it not that this the time has come that we should take it to the authorities and make it this is compulsory for all the premises. You take residential, institutional, mall, multiplex. That I think something we need to start, and I think need to be there, and we can ask government agencies to make it compulsory. So are we heading towards that, or how the things in the future?
So if you see in Singapore, the guy from the government agency comes and the mock drill is done surprise and he checks the timing.
Just to add on that, when you said Singapore, I have witnessed one mock drill in Singapore. There was a residential building out of 52 story, and I was the witness. What you rightly said, yes, the authority comes, they give us the schedule, send us about weeks back a mail, they send it, and they are ready with the complete equipment.
Correct. So sir, mock drill का हालत वही है जो हमारे यहाँ पर helmet का हालत है. So rule तो बन गया है, but then it comes to the political decision.
I agree.
So it's definitely political because यहाँ पर you know how the politician they all work sir. So it has go slow and steady. फिर किसने चिल्लाया तो फिर वापस पीछे आ गए, फिर थोड़ा आगे चले गए. So same story. So here, if you really want to go ahead, so what I have experienced is creating that awareness. So if you don't have that awareness, again, like we said in societies, when normally you do a mock drill, वो committee का 12 लोग भी नहीं आता है, right? But then when we do it, we find 300 people are there. So how? What is the way? Very simple. I'll be very practical. खाना रख दो sir.
Correct.
Keep a lunch. Yes. Because there people in residential building will receive वही पूछेंगे खाना कितने बजे, drill कितने बजे नहीं, और खाना है तो देख काम. But what I have also seen is you keep this once, खाना एक बार रखो, and if you do it this whole drill properly, and if you hit it here, so next time उनको चाय का भी जरूरत नहीं है. But first time you want to get them down, you have to. Secondly, we need to celebrate this mock drill like we do celebration of 15th August 26. हम लोग one fine day we do it, it will not going to work. So you have to actually build a tempo, involve the ladies, it will go to next level. Involve the children from 1 week onward, build up a tempo, poster competition, slogan, prizes. So people actually look for that Sunday. अभी Sunday कुछ होने वाला. One fine Sunday 10:30 is not going to happen. फिर वही story है sir, swimming pool में ज़्यादा है और fire brigade सामने कम है. It's not happening.
Very true.
So keep the lunch for first time sir, and then it happens.
Short, what you want to say is that nothing is free in this world, not even a mock drill.
Okay. Thanks a lot.